Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Final Fantasy Commander deck profile, today with Vincent Valentine. For 2 and 2 black, you have whenever a creature an opponent controls gets removed, put a number of +1/+1 counters on Vincent Valentine equal to that creature's power. Then, when Vincent attacks, you may transform him into Galleon Beast. Trample, lifelink, when Galleon Beast dies, return it to the battlefield tapped, front side face up. So it becomes Vincent again, and this way you get those additional +1/+1 counters. This way we can make sure that we can keep on removing our opponent's stuff. So we have plenty of ways to make sure that our opponent's sacrificing their creatures so that we don't have to worry about it being indestructible, ways to benefit off of their creatures getting removed, and ways that maybe, we could get their creatures, or, make sure our stuff also doesn't get removed on top of that. But that's the general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. We have Arcane Signet for some mana. It is a 4-mana commander, so always helpful to have some additional mana there. Bola Citadel, I don't know why it came as white border one. Look at the top card of your library. Anytime you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. Sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Super helpful there in terms of having our creatures, having 20 of those in the deck, having 4 enchantments, having so many things that we'll just want to cast off the top of the deck so often. Charcoal Diamond for some additional mana, Felwar Stone for some additional mana, Jet Medallion for some cost reduction, Lightning Grease because we're going to want to make sure Vincent can attack the turn he comes down, so let's have something to give him haste. Mind Stone for some additional mana, Soul Ring for some additional mana, Swiftfoot Boots once again to make sure we give him that haste, to make sure he can attack the turn he comes down, to deal some big damage. Taurian Soul Cleaver. Equip creatures Vigilance so that we could make sure we still block with a turn he attacks. Whenever another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. This way, even when he's on the flip side, we can still keep getting those +1/+1 counters onto Galleon Beast. And we don't have to worry about trying to flip him back over so we can get the strength back up. Where were we? Turgid the Fright. Menace, whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, he may put that card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I mean, if we're going to be removing our opponent's stuff, we don't want it to go to waste. Let's get it back onto our battlefield. The Masamune. Vincent's sword, right? Look at that art. That's him. As long as a quick creature is attacking, it has first strike and must be blocked if able. I mean, with the massive stat line plus first strike, plus having to be blocked, that's going to remove a few of our opponent's things. And an equipped creature has, if a creature dying causes an ability to happen, it happens an additional time. AKA, we could get some additional +1/+1 counters onto Vincent. We get some Blood Artist abilities off. We could get, a few things that we have in this deck. We'll get into it as we get into it. Ozolith. Whenever a creature enters you control leaves the battlefield, if you have counters on it, put those counters onto Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can put those counters onto something else. If this dies, we get its counters onto the Ozolith, which probably a lot at a certain point. And then we get him back, and we get those counters onto him, so it's like he was never removed in the first place. So it's almost not worth it to remove him. Drone of the Eldraine. Enters battlefield, choose a color, aka black. Add 4 mana of the chosen color. Spend this mana only to cast mono-colored spells. We don't have to worry about that. We're in mono black. And then drain mana, draw 2 cards, spend only mana of the chosen color to activate this ability. That's not going to be a problem with this deck. Then we have a Cursed Marauder. Whenever a Cursed Marauder enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature, making our opponents having to sacrifice those creatures in order to get Turgid's ability off, or to get those counters onto Vincent Valentine. If each opponent has a creature, that's 3 counters already, making him a 5/5, making this into a 6/5, with Trample and Lifelink on top of that. Archfiend Depravity. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures they control, sacrifices the rest. They're probably going to make it so that they don't have more than 2 creatures, or remove this before they do. So it's not going to really play that much, but it does definitely help get rid of their removal spell so they don't remove Vincent. Blood Artist. When this creature or another creature dies, target player loses a life, and you gain life. So, a little bit of life gain there for us, a little bit of burn for our opponents. We're going to be removing so many things. Let's have some way to benefit off that. Braid's Cabal Minion. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. If we get this early enough with this plus Dark Ritual, with our land plus Dark Ritual, it'll be a turn 2. We just are sacrificing our lands, our opponents don't have anything they can do. Whew. Cryptghast, 4 mana, extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black. If you do, each opponent loses life. You gain that much life. Not gonna really matter. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black. That's super nice to have that additional mana, especially because we're gonna need 4. So let's use the 4 to cast this, then have 8 on the board. Dark, or just use Dark Ritual to cast this, and then next turn we're all set. Dark Confidant, at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand, lose life equal to its mana value. We're going to want as much draw power as possible because this deck's going to want to work pretty quickly. Demon's Disciple enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. These are all cards that are helpful in the Squall deck, but also really helpful here because you're going to be getting 3 +1/+1 counters onto Vincent. Flashback Marauder does the same thing. Grave Lighter, at the beginning of as it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature dies turn, which, yes. Otherwise, each player sacrifices a creature. Also, yes. We want both those things in this deck. Grey Merchant Asphodel is going to have at least 4 Devotion to Black between him and Vincent on the battlefield. And each opponent loses X life, where X is your Devotion to Black. You gain life equal to life lost this way. So they're going to each lose 4. You're going to gain 12. Harvest their souls, Death Touch, with a 5/5. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. That's going to be happening a whole bunch. We're going to be drawing a whole bunch of cards. Massacre Worm enters each creature your opponents control, get -2/-2. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Like I said, we want things that'll benefit off of our opponents, things getting removed. So let's remove a whole bunch of them. Let's get a whole bunch of benefits. Does everything we need to do. Merciless Executioner enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a creature. We're going to tend to just sacrifice the thing that we summon in order to power bar Vincent, getting him into a 5/5. Phyrexian Obliterator. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source controller sacrifices that many permanents as well. It could be their lands, could be their creatures, could be everything they don't want to remove. Could be their Blasphemous Act that just did 13 damage to this thing, and now they have to sacrifice everything they have. Morbid Opportunist, whenever one or more other creatures dies, draw a card. We like drawing cards. Yes. Plague Crafter, once again, enters, everyone sacrifices something, or someone discards something. These also all really help out Terrorgrid here. Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier, whenever he enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card, a little bit of draw power there. And whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses life, you gain life. It's just 4 times happen. Transform him. We get that off Plague Crafter, we got that off Flashback Marauder, we got that off a Curse Marauder. We got that a whole bunch. So he's going to transform him, making plenty of emblems if we have ways to bring him back, which maybe, stay tuned. Sephiroth, Shoulder, the Whispering One, Swamp Walk, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, aka Sephiroth. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Another benefit there for Terrorgrid, another way to remove our opponent's stuff in order to get Vincent stronger. And Zodiark, the Umbral God. When he enters, each player sacrifices half the non-god creatures they control of their choice, rounded down. That's unfortunate, but still. That could be a lot of creatures, depending on what they're running. If they're running tokens, that's a whole bunch of counters for Vincent. Whenever a player sacrifices another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on the Zodiark. If I were building a Zodiark deck, which we probably will at a certain point because we're going through almost all the commanders so far, I'll probably get a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters to them. Black Market. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter onto Black Market. At the beginning of pre-combat main phase, add black mana for each charge counter on Black Market. With all the creatures that are going to be dying, we're going to be getting plenty of mana. It's not going to even matter how much of our stuff they remove because they're going to all get a creature turn 1, and then we'll get turned 3 Black Market off of our Dark Ritual, right? Phyrexian Arena, and our Soul Ring we'll need. Phyrexian Arena, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card, lose 1 life, that's fine. We want to draw power. Children enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. A little bit more removal, a little bit more counters there for Vincent. And you transform at a certain point. For each opponent, destroys up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Each opponent discards 3 cards, then mills 3 cards. Basically getting rid of our opponent's entire hand by the time we transform this. And then put all put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. I mean, that's a lot of creatures, but I mean, it could end up in us having a whole bunch of Curse Marauder effects to happen again. So that's even more death things to happen there for Vincent as well. Then Meat Hook Massacre, whenever it enters, each creature gets -X on the turn. Hopefully it doesn't affect Vincent too much, because you're going to have those +1/+1 counters on him by then. And then whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses life. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain a life. AKA, we want those things to benefit each other, which they will be. On to the second half of the deck, or really last 26 plus 35, that's 61 cards. Yeah, it's more than half the deck. Alicia's Legacy. Target creature gets Death Touch and Indestructible, making so we can protect Vincent for just a little bit longer. Even though he does come back, I mean, we do want to make sure that if we don't have the Ozlith, we want to make sure we can keep those +1/+1 counters around. Dark Ritual for some additional mana. Deadly Dispute. Sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards, get a treasure token. Some additional ramp, some additional draw power. Some additional ways to get some death triggers. Flare of Malice. Sacrifice a non-token creature. Rather than pay its mana cost, each opponent sacrifices its creature. Another way to get some more counters on the Vincent pair. Force of Despair. If it's not your turn, you may exile a black card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. I mean, our opponent just had their big turn, got their Crater of Behemoth, got all their tokens on the battlefield. No, they didn't. Go for the Drought, destroy target non-artifact creature. Super helpful there. Again, we have a whole bunch of spells that'll just remove our opponent's stuff. So, to make more Vincent abilities happen. Imps Mischief. Change the target spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's mana value. This way, maybe our opponent sacrificed the thing that we were trying to target. We could pay mana to change the target if we go for the Drought. Or if they're trying to remove our Vincent, we could change the target of that. Infernal Grasp for some more removal. Sheoldred's Edict. Each player sacrifices a token, non-token, or Planeswalker, depending on what we want to do at the time. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Soul Shatter. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Once again, all these things, removing our opponent's stuff, getting more counters onto Vincent, and then, we had to run Vincent's Limit Break. Tiered, you may choose one additional cost. Target creature you control gains, when this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped on a control, and has the chosen base power and toughness based upon how much mana you spent. So if we spend 5 mana for this, we give Vincent the ability to come back, along with making him a 7/2. Vona's Hunger. Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get to Seize Blessing. Each one sacrifices a creature. If you had to Seize Blessing, instead each one sacrifices half the creatures they control rounded up this time, as opposed to being rounded down with the, what was his name? Zodiark. Withering Torment. Destroy target creature. Once again, we like removal in this deck. Blasphemous Edict. Each player sacrifices 13 creatures. That's basically a board wipe. Unless they're playing a real good token deck. Feed the Swarm. Destroy target creature enchantment. Another source of removal. Each player sacrifices a creature due to instant blood. More removal there. More counters onto Vincent. Mandate of Abandon. Choose target creature you control. Destroy all creatures with power less than that creature's power. If we get Vincent up to strong enough, that's a board wipe. Nice Whisper for some more draw power. Same with Read the Bones. Reanimate. If we're moving our opponent's big stuff, we may as well, not have it go to waste, right? Let's reanimate it under our control. Or let's reanimate all of them with Rise of the Dark Realms. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Sign Blood for some more draw power. Torment and Hailfire. Repeat this X times, where X is whatever you want to pay into it. Each player loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So, make them basically discard their entire hand, sacrifice their entire board, or, win the game. Toxic Deluge. An additional cost to cast a spell. All creatures gets -X, which, be careful of what Vincent's at the start of casting this, because the creatures will die altogether, and then you'll get the counters onto Vincent, so you want to make sure it's less than Vincent's power for the life that you're paying. Well, his toughness. But they're the same thing, unless you have Vincent's Limit Break. And then Will of the Abzan. 4 mana, choose one. If you control a commander, you can choose both. Any number of target opponents, each sacrifice a creature with the greatest power, yes, and then return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We could get our strongest thing back, probably Sephiroth, and get all the benefits off that. But that's the deck there. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Hope you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future videos. Have a great rest of the day.